mode.
Welcome everybody. We appreciate everybody joining us today for OSG's webinar, Creating an Embarrassment of Riches, OSG's Approach to Innovation Using Jobs and Outcomes. My name is John Duggan. I'm a Vice President in our Retail and CPG practice here at OSG. Before we get started, I want a couple of quick housekeeping notes. The webinar will be muted for the duration. We want to make sure we keep this up down to the 30-minute time frame because we are cognizant of your time. If you do have questions, there is a typing tool on the side of your screen that you can type in, and we will have time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you may have. We can also follow up afterwards if anything, any further or deeper dives you're looking for, as I also will be sharing the full presentation deck with everybody that's registered. One thing I do want to point out, yesterday we had the same webinar schedule. We put 2 different dates in to give people flexibility in attending. Unfortunately, due to the weather in the Northeast earlier this week, we had some disruptions. That's why we had to cancel yesterday's webinar, and I do apologize for any inconveniences and appreciate anybody that was able to join us today that had been registered for yesterday. So that being said, what we'd like to do is we'd like to get started now. As I mentioned, we will have time at the end for any questions, and we will share the deck afterwards. So real quickly, those of you who aren't familiar with OSG, our core mission is based on customer centricity. Now, what does that exactly mean? It means that we truly are not your traditional market research company. We focus on both the behavioral and the cognitive analytics that drive consumer and shoppers' behaviors. That really helps you understand what customers want and why they want it. And by developing these insights, it enables you to develop innovative new products, services, messaging to help you separate yourself and uncovering unmet needs in the marketplace and be able to capitalize on those and drive your business through differentiation. So it really comes down to helping you grow through differentiation and innovation. A little more background on us, for those again who aren't familiar. In less than a decade, OSG has grown to over 100 employees. We do have offices throughout the world. We've done over 800 engagements with our partners. We do work with a wide range of Fortune 500 clients on a global basis. Our thought leadership and analytics have been recognized in Forbes, HBR, JMR, Chief Marketer. We've also been recognized 5 years in a row as one of the fastest growing companies by Inc. 5000 in the United States. And one of the things I do want to point out is we truly do focus on helping our clients and our partners differentiate themselves in the marketplace. And by doing so, in our unique approach, we've actually been able to, over those 800 projects, they have led to over $80 billion in incremental revenue to our partners. So we truly put the money where our mouth where the money is. So again, it's a great partner to be working with. We're excited today to introduce our featured speaker today is Tael Hayes. Tael is the Senior Vice President of Consumer Insights at BET, which is a Viacom company. In this role, he's got over 16 years experience working in the global consumer insights industry. In his role at BET, he's leading their consumer insights group, helping them create an inspired brand strategy and compelling programming that's aimed at their target audience of a rich and vibrant African American audience. Prior to BET, Tael had been a leader in the global oral care insights team at J&J Consumer, really helping them drive their business planning, their brand equity development, and marketing mix analysis, and also sales optimization. And prior to that had spent some senior insight roles at Procter & Gamble. He has an MBA from Purdue University and a BA in marketing from Hampton University. Tael, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much.
And also, we're great to have you here with us today. Also, we're hoping that he can call in. Our president and founder, Dr. Sukumar, is actually overseas right now, so he will be joining us if he can. But just real quickly, I gave you a background on OSG as he was the founder. Prior to OSG, he had spent 25 years in academia teaching at the MBA level, marketing analytics and strategy at such universities as Rutgers, Thunderbird, Maryland, Houston, Georgia. He has an MBA and PhD from the University of Pittsburgh and a BA in mechanical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology. For those of you not familiar with that, is really the MIT university system of India and extremely difficult to get into. So hopefully Dr. Sukumar can be joining us today. So what I'd like to do is we got some of the background out of the way. What I want to do is bring Tael in. He's been a great partner with OSG and has really leveraged and maximized our services and our platforms. And I'd like to get his thoughts and ideas on, first and foremost, Tael, what is your thoughts on innovation? It seems like such a basic question, but a lot of people can't see the forest through the trees, and I'd like to get your take and how you've approached it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. It's been a really valuable partnership. And I think moving from different CPG categories, from beauty care into personal care, and now into media, the idea is the same, which is how do you create value? And that value is created, driven category by category, but it always boils down to how do you take an idea and bring it into something that someone is actually going to consume, right? And you can layer that through your consumption model. But ultimately, it kind of rests itself on these four pillars of long-term growth, of driving market relevance, of looking at future thinking, and then advancement to society. So you can definitely have different weights against those four based on your category or your industry, but ultimately, if you keep your eye focused on how do I create value for an individual that ultimately they can consume, I think then you always win in that space.
Excellent, excellent. That's great. So, that's very insightful. So really, from that process you're looking at there, how do you see this? How does this process evolve internally? How does it make its way through the company? How is it able to take root and become an integral part, a driving part within a company, and also using some of our methodology in that?
Yeah. So if you think through how the OSG model, the real meat of it, right, it really looks at consumer needs. And I believe firmly that consumer needs are the most salient of all the ways you can look at either segmenting the market or better understanding your market is by going to the needs versus looking at just attitudes or behaviors or demographics, for example. So with that, looking at needs, you can look at how things kind of move, right? And the idea is that they start off as something that may be a bit more niche, that may be something that a job is defined as something that someone needs in order to fulfill one of their life desires. But the idea with that all is that it's continuous, right? And how as innovations come and as companies make advancements, then things move from being relatively unmet but unknown to them being more popular and desired, then ultimately being table stakes, right? And so as innovation moves through the cycle, it's our job as innovators to stay on top of what's hot, what's next. Because if not, then you run the risk of being like a typewriter, or you're focused so much on your typewriter business, not realizing that personal computers have come along and really outpace you. Or the watch business now, where watches are having to redefine themselves in the new space of wearables, where probably 10 years ago that wasn't their problem. So now, how do I create value in these spaces now so that I can stay relevant either in my current category or adjust my category needs so that I am delivering on those core benefits that consumers want.
Excellent, excellent. That's very informative. So on the next slide here, we are talking about consumption being continuous but not discrete, and like to see what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think the idea that consumption is continuous is not continuous but discrete is really making sure that through innovation that we are all keeping our eye on where the money is being transferred. Because I think all too often, whatever your category is, it's wonderful to get caught up in the art of innovation, the ideation of it, the fuzzy nature of it, and not linking and making sure that you're staying grounded in very discrete transactions, right? So Apple as a company was built by people buying one thing at a time, right? The brand is being built by people, or in my case at BET, our ratings and revenue are driven by one television at a time. So if we take our eye off of the idea that people are watching television in 30-minute or 1-hour increments, and we stay too focused on these higher order spaces, then you lose sight of how you ultimately build your business and how your innovation then really has a chance to take root and hold on to the world is by being discreet and making sure that is there. However, I would argue the flip side, you go to the next slide, is where we're looking at the idea that innovation in itself, though, is not discrete. It's continuous. So I think that that's a great tension that you see in most powerful innovative companies or brands, is that they are balancing the discreteness of the consumption with the continuousness of innovation. Meaning, I'm not going to rest on my laurels about one launch. Or as I launch a platform, I'm not thinking about year 2 or year 3 because all I'm concerned about is year 1. So therefore, when competitors catch up, going back to their previous slide, as they catch up and move around the bubble, you're not ready yourself. So then you become a bit of a one-hit wonder. And so I think balancing those two out and the idea of consumption being continuous, but then innovation, the consumption being discrete, but innovation being continuous is going to be crucial for you to really drive these things home. And if you go to the next slide, John, that really requires focus. So right now, those two things feel like they're at odds with each other. But my belief and my experience has been with all the innovation I've helped create is really around the idea of driving focus. So how do you really do that? And I think, next slide, it really comes down to how do you have a model come to life in the marketplace. So just like we showed you the example with watches or timepieces, what is the model for your category? So what are the things inside of your category that are kind of entry ticket, things that are stay in the game? What are things that will drive market evolution? Then what are the things that might be a bit more fuzzy driving market development? You may selectively leverage those. And most important, what's indifferent? Because what you want to make sure is that you have a good understanding of this first and a good consumer-based understanding. I would argue that most of us can probably fill this out in our own offices from our point of view, but knowing that most of us are not our fans or not our consumers, it becomes crucially important that we use that we have them involved in this process and we know what's important to our specific target markets so we can really drive that home. All right, so next slide. If you look at that, what innovation means, right, and the idea of how do you bring that focus home, I wanted to share a couple different examples of how it can show up, because innovation isn't always just product news, right? It can come in many forms, but product is probably the most easiest to understand and the first one you go to. So you've got the example of Johnson's Baby here, where there's the technology in Johnson's Baby Lavender that was then proliferated across a portfolio of categories inside of Baby. So you create a bit of a regimen and therefore driving basket size there. So this strategy is about basket. How do I get someone who might be just using the wash to now use the oil and the lotion and the baby bath, right? So driving this one benefit home to drive market basket is one approach. I think on the bottom with method, you got a really good example of looking at a common core brand promise. And how do you drive a brand promise and use that brand promise as a filter and a driver for innovation to launch a whole category of products that really span across the spaces. And what you don't see on this slide is they've now moved into personal care. So they were able to move out of household care into personal care because of a very strong brand promise that was the fuel and the focus for their innovation. All right, so next slide, you've got new metrics. So I love this idea. On our first job at P&G was on IMS, and so we always talked about how dogs, which are many people's children, are able to have better, longer lives by feeding them better food. And so with that, now we can see you can bring innovation in this space of adding years to your dog's life by switching pet foods. And I think that's a great new way of thinking about a new metric, right? So it's not just about much more beef or much more chicken, and now by changing the entire definition, you can bring innovation in that way. All right. Next slide looks at changing the overall currency. So you can look at now what is the currency for innovation, and Blades is a really good example of that. 3, 4, 5, 7, and then comes Dollar Shave Club, who reassigns that value. Or in this case here, you got body wash where it went from 8 hours to 12 to 16 to 24. So you got, and there's a 48 on the market now since these slides have been done. So you get to see how people can redefine currency as to what's important. So it's not just cleans better, but keeps you fresher longer, which freshness is the need, right? All right. So the next you got company name, where you can look at here where there was a very, some would argue maybe a sleepy category before Chobani launched, and with Chobani, they then come and redefine what the category looks like by, again, bringing a full brand promise and a new product, a new category innovation in the idea of high protein yogurt. So right now, everyone was probably fighting over taste and over sugars, sugar levels and which fruit flavors and maybe cause marketing. Chobani came and really revolutionized and disrupted this category in many ways, to where now if you go and look at the category, it's pretty much table stakes. So I actually love this example in the sense that since since high protein Greek yogurt has launched, it literally has redefined the entire category. And if you go to the shelf now, what's table stakes if you're going to be a brand that's competitive in this space is that you have both a traditional yogurt option and a high protein option. And I think that's a beautiful example of how that quadrant map moves and how things move around that. But the idea, my point of view and how I really leverage OSG is the idea of focusing on unmet needs. So that's the next slide, where you really look at what are the areas in the green, which means these are areas that you will focus on these since they are high value areas that consumers have told you are really, really important to them. These are needs that are super important to me, but right now for my product offerings is not getting met. And I think that that's a beautifully simple story, right? Is I'm going to focus on things that people say are important to them, but they are not getting from their current set of products. And you really can't go wrong as long as you deliver and execute well. You can't go wrong in that space because you're, again, leveraging your focus for innovation off of very clear insights from your fans.
And we got there via our AceMap platform. And just, I'm not going to go a deep dive into this, but just real quickly what our AceMap is. It was developed at Stanford University, and really what it is, it's an individualized trade-off technique that's going to help you understand, what are the drivers at the individual level for the jobs and outcomes that are important in motivating behavior. And by identifying these, it helps you to design innovative products, messages, and services that can help you differentiate, be in that green quadrant, and be successful in the marketplace.
And I think the idea of it all is how do you, one of the things, I use an example at BET, specifically focus on African Americans as our target market for television. One of the things that we balance ourselves with is, showing African Americans in the best light possible, right? So how do you always make sure that we have good representation of how African Americans are being seen, and also at the same time give people a dramatic television, which very much is table stakes for today's marketplace. So this is where we've used this example here to really help us identify what the right levers are, because right now people say they want it all, but when you're forced to choose your favorite child, you've got to make a choice. So you've got to choose attributes that you love and you hate versus saying you want it all. And I think in other methodologies that I used early in my career, they were so general, it was very hard to be specific in my innovation and know which things I was going after because it was so general and laden on, here's what people could ask for everything. So therefore, it was very hard to decide on what to deliver that would drive them to change behavior. Okay? So if you skip to our keys to success, the idea, I want to save time for questions because I think that's probably the most important part of this, so you guys can really make it practical. But the idea here is have a vision for your work, enroll all your key stakeholders really early, take the team on a journey, really understand what these things are about. Don't make this just an exercise you do in the office on a Friday afternoon. Really, get out and talk with folks, talk with your core target, talk with your major fans to understand what they're looking for, touch base often, secure some advocates, really walk the corners of your office. These processes take time. So as you learn new insights, walk them around. So people don't feel like you've been in a black box for 6 months doing work and they come back and the organization's kind of moved on, right? Celebrate your accomplishments. So, the idea of my mission today, I'll give you an example here. At one point, we had to take, since I've done this globally, when we did this on oral care, we had basically all of our major markets and we had needs generated by market that we were trying to condense down. I literally did a video of that day and sent it to the team around the globe and said, hey guys, our vision for today is to take all this amazing learning that we've been with you guys on for the past few months and boil it into one list that we can, go to market with. And I was like, kudos to the team for doing this, wish us luck, and we got so many great positive notes back, and it was just a really good example of just keeping folks who might have thought who didn't know what we were doing in the loop as to what our challenge was for that day and moving this big initiative forward, really unlocking key innovation. Okay, so I'll wrap up really quickly on the last few slides here. So next slide is how to make this real. Really, have a vision, have some focus, and gain commitment are the three things that sound like, kind of, strategy 101, but I think it's really important to think about these types of research like this as strategic in the sense that you can literally reorganize your company's resources around it. So I wouldn't treat this as a very transactional kind of one-off research. I really would make sure that you're leveraging, all the best practices and getting broad alignment to make sure that you got this. So the idea here is, so if you think about kind of, who's done it well, continuous innovation, a continuous future focused innovation. If you look at like Citi or the banking industry, they kind of have to, right? And the idea that I'm constantly having to rethink about my target in a very highly competitive space where people are literally trading something that they've been trading since the beginning of time, which is trading currency to get things, right? So that's one of the oldest needs out there. So right now as a bank, how do you keep it fresh to get people to ultimately change their behavior and either stop using something and start using you, or start with you for the first time? And so I think that banking is a really good industry to think through. If you look at it as a consumer, you can look at it and say, how many messages am I getting from different banks, which shows the amount of attention they are spending to really understanding your behavior, segmenting you in the right ways, understanding what your needs are, on whether that's around travel or around high dividends or around status, really getting at some things that are beyond the basics of the known category to help you drive behavior. So that's what I've got. Hope it was helpful. I think we're going to take some questions at this time. You guys have any?
Yes, we do. Thank you. That was the title. That was great. Okay, the first question coming in here is, all right, this is a good one. They're basically, paraphrase it, is, what was the difference with this between a CPG and a media company? Obviously, coming from a CPG company going to a media, how was this platform utilized in both?
Yeah. So if you think about it, it was used fairly similarly, because the idea is, what are the fundamental drivers of choice for a category, right? What are the fundamental things that you're looking for when you come into this category? So it's really about what we had to do, and whether it's oral care or pain or body care. I've done this in a number of categories. You deconstruct what the basic thing is, right? So in oral care, you think, oh, it's about fresh breath and a clean mouth. Like, oh, that's pretty simple. Like, why do you need to break this down? But when you look at this and you think about what are the 30 drivers that define that, so you can look at all kinds of spaces that go beyond fresh breath to clean feeling in your mouth, to the look of your teeth, to the smell of your breath. A clean mouth is defined in 40 different ways, right? And you kind of break that down. It's also defined by longevity, right? How long does your mouth stay clean? All that's a part of it. Similarly, in entertainment, if you look at escapism, is why we all watch television, right? We're all watching it to escape our troubles and to be entertained. However, I can break that down into a number of different attributes, whether that's about I'm watching this to be entertained and learn something new, or I'm looking for something that's thrilling and exciting, or I'm looking for something that shows me drama that I don't want in my own life. Like, you got very different needs that are driving those, and by breaking your category down into what those fundamental needs are, that's when you can begin to then stratify them with OSG's model. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, that's great. That's great. So then the last question here, I know we're getting close to time here, but okay, so it reads as, do you build innovation at the market level, or do you use segmentation to dig deeper to uncover corridors of opportunity? Not sure how you want to address that.
Yeah, I've done it both ways. So I've done it if we have a current segmentation, it feels very valid, and we feel like it's a good need-based model, then I've started with the segmentation, and then I go deep inside of those, right? I've done that in personal care, where you're pretty clear on what your lanes are and who you're going after. So therefore, the segmentation wasn't. So then the needs inside of those segments are pretty, is where you start. I've also used it the other way around, where I have used this models like this to then create a segmentation. Because you think about it now, once you've got 42 needs for oral care and you've broken up a clean, fresh mouth into 40 different things, you can imagine there are people who are going to travel over into more like health-related aspects, and that's more important to them. Some people are going to go into beauty aspects, and that's more important to them. Some are going to go into natural and holistic. So what you can also do is use models like this to actually cluster those needs together and create segments that are based on needs, which again I find to be the most powerful, because now people are traveling with their need group versus just with their gender or their age.
Okay, great, great. Well, I think that's going to, I don't see any other questions, and we're coming up on about 30 minutes here. Tayal, again, thank you very much. We very much appreciate you joining us today with these great insights. Just a word to everybody out there, I will be sending out the presentation deck to everybody, and if anybody has any questions or wants to explore this platform or in more depth, please let me know, and we can absolutely set up time to discuss in more detail. But I think that should do it, unless, Tayal, you have anything else to add?
Yeah, and I'm big on collaboration. I've been on this journey a long time with a lot of brands and helping to bring innovation in those spaces. You guys look me up on LinkedIn. My information is probably in the deck. If you guys have any questions, you want to talk through process or talk through running through your organization, or want to throw some ideas off of me, I'm always open to help drive innovation through our wonderful function.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. We're coming right up on time. Everybody have a great day, and we'll be in contact. Thank you, folks.